I was ready to enjoy the solitude of my backyard. That is, until I stepped outside to grab my morning coffee and saw it, a bright yellow clamp on the tire of my car. My heart sank. I walked over, half expecting it to be a mistake, but there it was, clear as day, a parking violation notice on the windshield, accompanied by a clamp locked around my tire. The nerve of it! I lived on a large piece of land with my driveway extending far enough to accommodate multiple cars. I had parked my vehicle exactly where I always did, right in front of my own garage. Yet here it was, a situation that could only be described as an HOA overreach. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. I knew what this was. It was the HOA again. For months, they'd been trying to impose ridiculous rules, sending notices for things like trimming my hedges too short or even for how my lawn looked after a heavy rain. But this time, they had crossed a line. This wasn't just about a minor violation. They had now decided to act as if they owned my property. The parking spot in front of my garage? My property. The driveway? My property. But apparently the HOA didn't think so. I pulled out my phone and called the HOA office. The woman who answered sounded as if she were already prepared for this call. "Good morning, how can I help you?" she said in a tone that suggested she knew exactly what was coming. "I'm calling about the clamp you placed on my car," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'd like to understand why it's there when I'm parked on my own property." There was a pause on the other end. "Oh, well, sir, you're violating community guidelines," she said, her voice far too calm. "You cannot park in that spot, it's a common area." I felt the anger rise, but I kept my cool. "That is not a common area. It's my property and I'll park where I choose." There was another long pause. Then, finally, the woman asked, "Sir, may I have your name?" I smirked slightly. "Judge Thomas," I replied, "and I'll be happy to discuss this further in a courtroom if need be." There was no response for a few seconds. Then she stammered, "Oh my, I'll have the clamp removed right away." A few minutes later, a truck arrived and the clamp was gone. But the moment stayed with me. The HOA had no idea who they were dealing with. I'd spent years in the courtroom handling cases where authority had overstepped its boundaries, and now I was on the other side of the law. I smiled as I watched the truck drive off, knowing that next time the HOA thought they could dictate how I use my own land, they'd think twice. After all, I wasn't just any homeowner, I was a judge, and I knew how to handle the law when it needed to be enforced.